I'm sure someone, somewhere, has asked themselves or the screen how a homeless girl can make videos without a computer. It's actually rather simple, really. I use other people's computers to do it, primarily library computers and other public access terminals. I have a 500 gig USB drive with my entire operating system on it. With that, I just restart any computer I plan to use and access the boot menu every older public machine has at post. Select my USB as the boot device and load into my own operating system. From there, I have access to everything I would need to make videos. Most of the time, it's substandard hardware, the kind that make gamers cringe when they encounter it, like integrated graphics, low RAM processor that was discontinued 5 years ago and only has 4 cores. On those, I keep things simple. Low-demand games. Retro is my go-to bag on these machines. And here's how I set that up. First, I had to choose an operating system. I was a lifelong Windows girl, and that seemed to be a good first choice for me. I could just run the Windows installer, point it at my USB drive instead of the internal, and let it go to town installing Windows there. Would serve the purpose of being a mobile operating system that will load on any machine capable of booting from USB, right? Wrong. Well, yes, you could technically do that. Windows really hates it when there are major hardware changes, like a different motherboard and processor from the last time it booted. You plug this into a different machine than it was in the last time it was on, and it will immediately call you a pirate and demand that you verify your copy of Windows. Linux, on the other hand, doesn't do that. If it sees different hardware, it simply goes, hardware's changed. I think I have some basic drivers for this. But which distro to use? I chose Linux Mint for this. I see all over YouTube and Reddit that this is the perfect Linux transition distro for people like me who have only ever used Windows. And getting it up and running is far simpler than Windows. Did you know most Linux distros have something called a live environment? No actual installation necessary. It will boot straight from the information contained in the ISO to a bog standard version of the operating system. Everything set to default. The issue here being it will not remember anything you do between sessions. It's primarily meant as a test environment. Screw around in it, break it, try to fix it. It won't remember next boot and everything goes back to base default. That's no good, right? Having to reinstall everything every time you boot. Enter the Casper persistence file. A Casper persistence file is a memory layer added on top of the live environment to allow a live environment to remember changes and give the environment storage. I used a tool called Yummy, or your Universal Multi-Boot Installer. Pretty simple tool, though, as far as I can tell, there's only an EXE, meaning you will either need a Windows computer to run it, or some compatibility set up in Linux to run Windows native programs. Let's use Windows for this video. While I have figured out how to do this in Linux, I'm not fluent enough to explain it. Please go check out the channel Linux Beanie. I'm sure he has a video on how to make Windows native programs run on Linux. Borrowing a friend's Windows computer. Simply download the ISO you want, and then run Yummy. Point it at your thumb drive, select the distribution you are making this for from the list, select your ISO you just downloaded, then select how large you want your persistence file to be. Then hit Create and sit back while it does its thing. Yummy will format the thumb drive, put the required files where they need to be, copy over the ISO, then create the persistence file that will live alongside the ISO. What really makes this work on any system is Ventoy. Ventoy is a program written primarily for Linux users to be used on machines with secure boot enabled. It uses what they call a shim. It slides in, gets challenged by the secure boot for a machine owner key, or mock, presents credentials, and then is allowed to run. Once Yummy is finished, you now have a fully functional, ready-to-be-used straight-out-of-the-box operating system that can be used on any hardware you have physical access to. All you have to do is reboot the machine, access the boot menu by spamming the boot menu key during post, Then select your USB thumb drive instead of the internal drive present in the machine. If you own the machine, you could also go into the BIOS and change the boot order to USB first so that it will default to your USB drive. But as we don't own the machine, I would recommend not doing that. I know someone just watched this whole video, made it to this point, and cringed so hard they licked their knee. Running your operating system from USB. Absurd. Let me start off by saying one word: homeless. If I could afford a better setup, I would use it. Now let's get into the more practical concerns people will have, starting with that this will wear out the USB. And you are correct, partially. First, Linux live environments live in RAM. So once it's loaded, the bulk of it functions exclusively in RAM and not from the drive. The only time the OS itself ever touches the drive is occasional settings updates and a periodic recheck of those settings. This would cause no more wear on the flash memory than using it to store documents. You'll probably wear out your RAM before you wear out your flash drive. You can usually tell how hard your USB is being hammered by how warm it gets. When doing heavy writes with large files, it can get pretty warm. Mine stays a nice cool room temperature through most of my workflow, only really warming up when rendering and saving a video. And even should you start to wear out the flash drive, everything that is your operating system is contained in 2 files. Just copy them to temporary storage, format a new flash drive with Yummy, copy the 2 files back over, lose nothing. Speed concerns is another myth. While yes, a USB 2 or 3 port is technically slower than an NVMe solid-state drive, your entire OS lives in RAM, which is about as fast as your solid-state drive. It has to be to keep up with it. As a daily driver used to write scripts and view cat videos, you aren't going to encounter any meaningful bottleneck to speeds due to the port. Gaming from it. Drive read-based loading times will definitely increase. But if you are using my method because you have no other option, you knew what you were getting into. Though I did once play Cyberpunk 2077 off this drive quite happily when I had access to a machine with a USB 3 port. So there is that. You can't update the kernel. Does it run? If the answer is yes, then what does it matter? In my case, beggars can't be choosers. And while IT professionals and security experts might be face-palming harder than Captain Picard right now, the fact of the matter is this just works. And if I want to move to the next version, I just download the new ISO and replace the one I am using. I'll leave links in the description for everything I've used in my setup. And please remember to not be evil. If you are in a similar situation as me, people have been kind enough to allow you to use their hardware. Please follow the hiker code, leave it as you found it.
Yo, bye.